Welcome, Pewter Report readers, listeners, and viewers to another edition of the Pewter Report podcast, Energized by Celsius. I'm John Ledyard from PewterReport.com. With me today is Scott Reynolds of PewterReport.com on a victory Monday for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers as they take down the division rival Atlanta Falcons 30-17 yesterday in a Sunday afternoon game. The Bucs improved to 9-3 on the season. They've got a stranglehold on the division, Scott. Everything's looking up for Tampa Bay. 3 straight wins, 2 on the road. They've scored 30 plus in all of them. It looks great, Scott. So we're of course going to start today's show by talking about COVID and injuries, just what everybody wants to hear about.
It was a newsy Monday today, right? I mean, this supposed to
Pewter Report was breaking some news today, Scott.
Yeah, we were. So let's. Where do you want to start, John? Because there's a lot to discuss.
There is. I always want to start with our friends over at Celsius because you know why, Scott? Celsius powers active lives every day with essential functional energy, and I didn't have that essential functional energy yesterday. I was dragging on that post-game pod, but I'm ready to roll now thanks to my wild berry. No sugar and yet unbelievable taste in these Celsius energy drinks, Scott. I don't know how Celsius does it.
Yeah, I mean, I'm rocking the Fuji apple pear today. It's one of my top 5s, and so I'm like to mix it up. I like the orange. It's definitely number 1. But the great thing is there's so many flavors, John. You know, there's even a cola flavored. Mm-hmm. It's incredible how they pull these flavors off. You mentioned the wild berry. It tastes like you threw a bunch of berries in your mouth. It just does. Right. This Fuji apple pear feels like I was chewing on an apple, then a pear, then an apple, then a pear. The flavor is amazing, and the energy is amazing too. And the great thing is there's no sugar crash, as John mentioned. There's no sugar in it. There's no preservatives. So it's fantastic energy drink. Find out where to get them. Click those banners on PewterReport.com, the Celsius banners. Type in your zip code, and it'll serve as a store locator for you. You can also buy them in bulk on Amazon and do the subscribe and save. You can save money. Then they actually ship it right to your door. That's the best thing is once you know the flavors you like, order them on Amazon, click the subscribe and save, and then they'll come to you every couple of weeks, every week, every month, whatever you want to set the setting at. So Celsius.com, store locator, click those banner ads on PewterReport.com and try a Celsius today.
Yeah, Zach Jarvis says tropical vibe, the best Celsius. Got him through work today. That's great to hear, Zach. This wild berry is sustaining me as well, especially through all the news that's happened today, Scott. Let's start with the COVID list. Zach Triner, Pewter Report published a story a few minutes ago that Zach Triner has been placed on the COVID list.
That's
for the Bucs, the long snapper. Yes, the long snapper. And what adds another interesting wrinkle to this is they just got him back from injured reserve. Right. And by the way, the team has just announced it as well. They just sent out an email. So he has been back for 2 weeks, I want to say, and they released Carson Tinker, who had been filling in for him for many weeks while after Triner went on injured reserve in week 1. But now Tinker got picked up by the Raiders last week, so he's not available for the Bucs just to grab back up. So now it's going to be to option number 3 on the season at long snapper for the Bucs.
Yeah, and the thing is Tinker did a good job. You know why we say that? Because you didn't hear about him. That's what you want from a long snapper.
We all forgot Triner wasn't there.
That's right. That's what you want as a long snapper is nobody to know who you are or what you do. Because if they do, that means you have had a bad snap. You gave up a blocked punt. You rolled the ball back to the holder for the placement for a PAT or a field goal. So it's better for these guys to live in anonymity. But we have to mention the name Zach Triner today because he's on the COVID list. So the Bucs will be looking out. They've got a short list, I'm sure, of people to bring in for either tryouts, or if they've tried out somebody, they'll sign somebody off the street and get them in here for Sunday's game.
Right, and that's the key. I mean, Triner can play. Like, it's possible that he could play by Sunday, but he would need, as a vaccinated player, he's going to need 2 negative tests 24 hours apart. Right, and he can't practice, so they're going to need to sign somebody for practice purposes at least, just in case he can't play. So it remains to be seen what's going to happen with Triner, but that's the only news that we have on the COVID front for the Bucs. So I guess that part of it's good, but you always are wait and see with these things once something happens. We did also have injury news today, Scott, as you had a little bit of information on the status of Jordan Whitehead moving forward for the Bucs.
Yeah, exactly. And do what Michael Henderson suggests. As soon as you enter the room, hit the like button and subscribe to Pewter Report TV. We appreciate that, Michael. Any updates on Jordan Whitehead? Yes. Pewter Report has reported today. John, you wrote the story that Jordan Whitehead is not going to be placed on injured reserve as of right now. That's a good sign because with the new cool injured reserve rules, It's not a season-ending injury anymore that causes players to be placed in injured reserve. It can free up a roster spot for as little as 3 months. I'm sorry, 3 weeks, not even a month. So that's the great thing about COVID. If you're looking for a silver lining in this pandemic, at least there's been some rule changes in the NFL that have benefited the teams and it benefited the game. And I think this is one that really needs to stick around. Is this new COVID rule where you can put a player on for as little as 3 weeks. And so the fact that they're not going to do that for Whitehead tells us at Pewter Report that this injury, that there's a chance he probably won't play against Buffalo, but there's a chance he could come back in the second week that he would miss for that Saints game on Sunday Night Football at Tampa, John.
Yeah, for sure. And so we'll just kind of wait and see with Jordan Whitehead, but the Bucs survived it well. I mean, Andrew Adams really you hardly heard his name. Speaking of guys that came in, you hardly heard his name. He barely had to do anything. Antoine Winfield's played terrific, other than, I guess he had 5 missed tackles yesterday. I noticed a couple. I didn't know it was 5. That's crazy. I've actually I don't know if I've ever seen 5 on a listed site. I've seen players like screw up 5 tackles, but never like 5 just actual
started
misses,
off really cold. Like his first quarter was not good, but I tell you, I thought he got better as the game went on.
Yeah.
And
his coverage was great.
His coverage is great. Exactly.
Yeah.
So the other bit of news today, Pewter Report didn't break this. Bruce Arians did during his press conference, is Richard Sherman going to be cross-trained at safety this week. They've had to do that with Ross Cockrell. They did that back in training camp, John, when you and I were there, and they just didn't have some bodies to start the training camp. So Ross Cockrell had to cross-train there, and it actually did quite well in practice. So he's got experience and actually played a handful of snaps there yesterday. But they're short on bodies with Whitehead out due to injury, with Edwards out due to his suspension. He's got 2 more weeks left on that. They need another body. So with Richard Sherman coming back from that calf injury, he's got the size at 6'3", about 200 pounds to get in there. And but it's an interesting type of situation. I think he's got the smarts to do it. He's got the temperament to do it. He's got the size to do it. But John, he has almost exclusively been an outside corner, right, for most of his career. He hasn't even been a nickel corner. Yeah.
It's a lot. It's a lot, because I do see what Michael's saying there, just in terms of about some of the ability, especially for a guy who's played a lot of zone in his career.
Yeah.
You know, when you're a zone heavy corner, usually that transition's a lot easier to safety, because most of the time safety, especially, I'm assuming he's going to be he would be mostly a deep safety, either 2 high or they rotate and he plays 1 high. But that's still asking a lot. I mean, A, the ground to cover at his limited athleticism, but B, Sherman has never been like a quick twitch guy. So, that's really important when you're playing in those single high position anyway. So it would probably limit how flexible they can be with their alignments. My guess is Sherman would be like a late game, 2 high shells. You know what coverage you're dropping it back into every play, prevent type defense, where maybe he can make a play on the ball, not having, you're playing quarters, and he's not responsible for that much of an area of the field, but his ball skills and his size could show up at the catch point. Those kind of situations, which is really how Ross Cockrell played a little bit yesterday too, I think. I mean, it was just kind of obvious pass situation safety, not going to ask him to like run fill or do things like that out of it. So in either way, it'll probably be an emergency situation. If Whitehead can't play this week, though, that's where things get interesting, because I hear what they're saying about IR. I still don't know that Whitehead plays this week, Scott. I still think that part sounds pretty decent question. And so if he doesn't, then you've obviously got Adams and Cockrell available to you for this week. But outside of that, you don't really have anything at safety. So you're kind of one injury away from being, and the Bucs they played some 3 safety, they played some dime, and the Bills. What's another thing about the Bills is they don't hardly ever run the ball. So more 4 wide receiver sets, more spreading the field. Right? Yeah, all those things are going to be in factor here. So having more DBs available to you than ever before this season is going to be really important, I think. Yeah.
Marissa asks, any word on SMB? It didn't sound like it was going to be a serious injury at all. Bruce Arians kind of, said, we don't anticipate that being an issue at all. So that is good news, because he went down. Jamel Dean, however, is in the protocol for concussion. And it sounded like Bruce was very optimistic about his chances of clearing that in time for Sunday's game. John, it's like the cornerbacks finally got healthy. Now it's the safety's turn to miss some games. They can't have the cornerbacks dropping like flies either.
Yeah, it seems, even if Dean clears, they need Whitehead to get back, and sounds like SMB's fine. That's good. Carlton Davis and Winfield are out there. So it still seems decently unlikely you'll have all 5 starting defensive backs out there for this week. We'll have to just see. And Whitehead Wednesday, Thursday, Friday will be telling days on Whitehead. We just need to be patient there. But it does sound like Dean could clear protocol, which I think is really big. We've not talked about it probably even enough. We did have a period of time where we talked about it, I think after the Eagles game and maybe, but he's just really played well this season. There's always going to be the moments with Dean that are like, what are we doing? Especially in zone coverage. But in man coverage, he's really been pretty good. You ask him to play in less space, and I think he just gets good. I mean, he's played really, really well. He made a great pass breakup on third down in the end zone that people kind of have already forgotten about from this past game. I think I almost did. I was looking back through the plays, and he's just played well. He's played great, and I think he's clearly played better than Sean Murphy-Bunting. So, it's good to have Dean out there for a matchup like the Bills. It's crucial to have him out there. But B, if it means we get to, that you can limit Murphy-Bunting some and his exposure some, as it was this past game. He didn't play every snap or even close to this past game. If you can limit him some, I think it's going to bode a lot better for your pass defense.
Yeah, and the thing too is one of the guys that played really well, and Tom Bucs fan, I'll acknowledge, Rondé Barber did adjust to safety. At age 37, his final year in Tampa Bay, he played free safety for the Greg Schiano Buccaneers. Actually played quite well for a 37-year-old defensive back who had the smarts to switch positions. He just, he's such a cerebral player. And the physicality too. He had 92 tackles, 4 interceptions, a pick 6, and a forced fumble. So Rondé went out with the bang. Even though the Bucs weren't that good that year, he certainly accepted the challenge and did that. Pierre Desser, though, John, he's a player that, if you look at his limited opportunities the last couple of weeks, he had the game-clinching interception in Indianapolis. That was a sweet moment for him, being a former Colt. Yeah. And then, the first play he comes in for Jamel Dean, forces a fumble, and ended up having 5 tackles. I thought he played really well. I even put him on the most impressive list, even over Carlton Davis, because Davis gave up some plays. I thought he played excellent in the second half. And John, turns out Pro Football Focus, which is not the end-all be-all, but they had a pretty good grade on him as well.
Yeah. They gave him like a 90. I think he had the highest grade on the defense, highest grade on the team from that past game. Obviously, you look at his role compared to other guys, and it's not maybe as significant, but he played about 22, 23, 24 snaps, something like that, and played well, and he's played pretty well overall. He's clearly passed up Delaney, and I think that's a good thing. Delaney did not play very well when he was out there. Desir's obviously more experienced. It was just going to be a matter of time until he passed up Delaney, I felt like, once he got the defense. So that's been a positive. And then he probably has passed up Sherman a corner too, and I'm not so sure that he isn't better than Sean Murphy-Bunting. Obviously, he's not going to play over him unless an injury happens, and so we'll just have to kind of wait and see how that all plays out, if Murphy-Bunting can get back to that playoff form that he showed or not. But I agree with Vortex here. I think Dean's played great this year, but the guy who came back, as we're on this secondary right now, and played just, I thought, unbelievable football, considering he's been out for as long as he's been, Carlton Davis. I know he missed 2 tackles, and that crazy weird reception at the end of the game happened that I don't think I've ever quite seen a catch like that. That was very bizarre on that particular route.
Then on the next play, he has a chance for an interception.
Yeah, right? He drops the pick. Yeah. Yeah, exactly. But he had 3 pass breakups in this game. I don't think we've other than Dean, Dean has played well, and he's gotten his hands on some balls this season, but that's just a great game for a corner. And some of his pass breakups were like great plays. I mean, he's diving full extension on Pitts on an over route across the whole field. He's diving full extension to knock one away on a third down, I believe. He was just playing great. Breaks on that one and drops at the end of the game. He could have had a pick there to seal it, but I thought he was just outstanding in this game, and having him back is just so important for the Bucs, and they're able to do some different things coverage wise, and they don't worry about him as much as the other corners.
I agree with you. And I think with his pedigree and his track record, I think that game 2 for him coming back this week against Buffalo is going to be even better, where it wasn't necessarily the same thing with Sean Bunting, right? Because it's like Sean's a very up and down player. He's striving for consistency. The Bucs would love for him to be a more consistent player, but he comes out, gets tested very much like Carlton Davis did right off the bat, right? He's the cold corner, hasn't played in weeks. Against the Giants, he was tested, and I thought he responded pretty well, but then struggled against the Colts, and I don't think really stood out yesterday against the Falcons. So I think, though, with Carlton Davis, you're going to see him get better and better as the weeks go along. He's just a more steady and consistent performer for the Bucs.
Oh, yeah. I mean, absolutely. What Carlton Davis has done has been instrumental for this team. I called him the defensive MVP last year. I know some people kind of laughed at me because obviously he wasn't one of the bigger names, but I just think he's that valuable. It's not saying he's the best player or was the best player last year. At least this year he might have a case. We'll see.
Yeah.
But I just think he's that valuable to them in terms of what he allows them to do. It changes some things and it takes away some top options. Now, Stephon Diggs next week is going to be a huge challenge, and we'll talk about that at length on Wednesday, because that is the type of receiver that's challenging and for anybody if they're going to play more man coverage, but especially for Davis as a bigger corner, guy that's a little bit slighter and shiftier like Diggs is a challenge. So we'll talk about that on Wednesday. There will be tough challenges down the road for him and for the Bucs secondary in general, but thought it was encouraging because if Davis and Winfield can keep playing like this and kind of keep arrow up, even if Dean is kind of hits that rocky road and has the slump a little bit for a game or two here, they might be able to weather it. If you can get Whitehead back, you kind of know what you're getting from him and the role that they've found for him in this defense. You kind of see the trajectory Winfield's on. You see the trajectory Davis is on. All of a sudden, you start to have a little bit more answers in the secondary. I could see a possibility where you have a group on the rise going into the playoffs if they're healthy in terms of performance, playing back together and everybody kind of hitting their stride at once. The question is going to be whether the scheme allows them to kind of play to that level consistently, especially Davis, who's so good at press man.
Jason Light was under some pressure from outside the building and inside the building to make a move, to really go out and make a trade, give up some future draft capital for a cornerback. And he resisted, but I think the moves that he and John Spytek and Rob McCartney have made, the pro personnel side, getting Richard Sherman, getting Pierre Desir, I think they've done enough to kind of band-aid and hold that secondary together with rubber cement and thumbtacks to get to this point. And at the end of the day, it's been good enough to get the Bucs to 9-3. And I think that should be applauded. And the other thing too is there's some talk about trading for Stephon Gilmore. I mean, he would have absolutely wrecked the salary cap for the Buccaneers, not just this year, but in the future. I mean, you're talking about if you bring on a Stephon Gilmore, who's 30, by the way, what are you going to pay Carlton? And which big name player, Chris Godwin, Ryan Jensen, who are you going to lose? Because it's going to be one of those type of situations. Rob Gronkowski not coming back. It would be one of those big name player for player type of things. And there's no guarantee that Gilmore's a fit in the Bucs locker room. He's a fit in this defense.
His age, he's coming off a significant season-ending injury that required almost a year of rehabilitation. There were lots of question marks there. Plus, people kind of overlooked this, but Gilmore went home. Like, that's where he's playing now. Like, he's playing closer to home. That's where he wanted to be there because A, he wanted to be closer to home, but B, he wanted a situation he could leverage in the offseason. He couldn't leverage the Bucs. They're only going to have so much money to give him, but he's now got an in Carolina. They've got money, so he can say, hey, this team's offering me this. What are you going to do? Well, the Bucs couldn't have done anything. Now he's looking at a situation where he's got an in and he can potentially make one more.
Speaking of home, let's do a roll call, right? We said we would do this today.
That's right.
Mark, we got about 160 people in the chat right now. Let's do a roll call here. We got Callum Shaw from Liverpool, England.
Oh, yes. Callum's in here all the time, too.
Yes.
He's always watching the show. Yeah.
So let's.
So if wherever you're from, just drop it in the chat. Wherever you're watching from, wherever you're from.
We'll roll through about a minute while John's talking. John can hit a topic here and talk for about a minute. I'm going to be bringing everybody's hometowns up here on the screen. So
sounds good. This game to me defensively, I thought that it was the way that they kind of got it together a little bit was encouraging because the Falcons drove inside Bucs territory a lot in this game. But the Bucs defense rose up in those situations, and especially pressure rose up in key situations. And although they still gave up way too many third downs, and that's absolutely an issue, especially third and longs. I think the fact that they were able to rise up in those situations was super encouraging because this is a team that is always going to be able to bend. They're always going to bend. As long as Bull's the defense coordinator, that's how they're going to play. There's going to be soft coverage. Once in a while, they'll have that game where a team can't move the ball at all against them. But for the most part, teams are going to move the ball against the Bucs at their strength, at their best. With everybody healthy, it's going to be about whether they can rise up and make sacks. You think of the Vikings game last year, right? There were lots of success moving the ball for the Vikings, but they didn't get in the end zone very often. They missed a bunch of field goals too. But their philosophy is basically that they're going to make enough splash plays to offset any yardage that you gain. And it hasn't worked very often this season because of the injuries, maybe just because it's a theory of philosophy with some holes in it logically, but it worked well against the Atlanta Falcons. And snub your nose at the opponent all you want. I get it. And we'll find out a lot against the Bills, I think. But that's the defensive approach that Bowles has kind of made a living by. And that's where the one where he's going to try to continue to thrive by the rest of the season, Scott. So to see them play kind of the way he wants them to play in those situations, to be able to make those splash plays, get 5 sacks, get a key turnover when the other team was in Buccaneers territory, get the goal line stop. Those are all like hallmarks of Todd Bowles' defense. You're not going to see a Bill Belichick type performance where the other team's quarterback just can't even, right now the Patriots I know they're playing weak competition, but they're just not doing anything. You know what I mean? Other teams against them in terms of through the air. That's not what you're going to see happen with a Bulls defense. They're going to stop the run. They're not going to let you score in one play for the most part, but the long drives can get you if you're not making those splash plays on some critical downs.
No doubt about it. Guys, that was awesome. Thanks for that roll call. Holy smokes. We are well represented across the country and around the world. I didn't really realize. I knew we got a bunch of international fans, but John, we've got fans from all over the globe. That was fun. We'll do this another time. We appreciate that. We did see a super chat in here. Let me go back to that. Thank you all for the roll call. That was fun.
William Butler with the $5 super chat. William's always dropping these gems in here. Appreciate that, William. He says, in your guys' opinion, because Bruce stated a decision hasn't been made on AB status for the team, do we need AB to win the Super Bowl? I'm not ready to say they need him to win the Super Bowl, but it sure would help. That's the best way to put it, I think.
Yeah. Well, and let's go back in time to last year, right? When he was signed as an insurance policy, right? I mean, back in 2019, the Bucs lost Mike Evans against the Colts, and then against the Lions lost both Chris Godwin and Scotty Miller down the stretch. So they played the last 2 games, I think 3 games of the season without Evans, the last 2 games of the season without Evans, Godwin, or Miller. So there's 5 games left, people. I'm not wishing any injuries upon anybody, but it might come down to when AB gets healthy and off his suspension, they might need him. There might be a big-time injury at wide receiver. Let's hope that there's not. But so that's why he's here. I was asked on WDA, if the Bucs should cut him because of this, and I said no. I said he was brought in as a mercenary. He was brought in to catch passes and win games. He was not brought in to start a foundation, to be a community face. They've already got plenty of guys like that. Mike Evans is at the top of the list. Chris Godwin's right behind him. All right, they've got a bunch of good guys. He is a hired gun coming in to help win games, make big plays, provide insurance, be the star of the game, all of the above. And as long as he can do that for this team this year, he'll continue to do it. And they'll look at next year. And I think that if AB comes back, because some of the things that the Bucs kind of inherited from the AB situation, the civil suits, the issue with with the landlord or whatever, those were things that happened before he became a Buccaneer. But John, this is the first thing that's happened while he's been a Buccaneer. And it might be a situation where if they want to bring AB back, you wait until the summer, you wait until training camp, just to ensure that nothing happens in the offseason that might make you regret the decision.
Yeah, we'll just have to see on that. I have no clue how that's going to play out. This is definitely throwing a wrench in my. I thought they would try to bring him back before this. Now I have no idea. I could see Arians just being like totally pissed and not wanting to do it. But some funny comments here on Scotty Miller. Scotty Miller's still on the team. Let's just talk about this since the AB things come up. One of the reasons that this has been so tough for the Bucs is figuring out a wide receiver 3 since AB's gone down. We actually thought, okay, they're pretty deep at wide receiver. They'll be okay. But then Scotty Miller got hurt. And so it was like, all right, they're not as deep as we thought. Tyler Johnson's going to have to step up. And he just really hasn't stepped up at all. In fact, so little has Scotty Miller stepped up that he's essentially been benched as of now. Bruce Arians could say what he wants. Tyler's played great. Well, I don't think he's played that great in my eyes or his eyes, because this is his stat line from the last Tyler Johnson. He had 1 catch for 8 yards, 3 catches for 17 yards against Washington, 1 catch for 8 yards against the Giants, 1 catch for 9 yards against the Colts, 1 catch for 5 yards against the Falcons. He played 9 snaps. He had been handling the wide receiver 3 duties by far until then, but he played 1 snap the other day. And so he just hasn't been getting open. When you watch all 22, he just isn't open very often. So they're trying to look at other options. I get it. But Brashad Perryman played 59 snaps. And Tyler Johnson played 9. And Scotty Miller played 4. And Brashad Perriman had a drop, his second one of the year, and he only has like 5 targets on the season. And he got one pass for 6 yards, I think. I'm just not like, what in the world does Brashad Perriman give you other than being physically larger? I wouldn't even say plays larger. Arians talks about his blocking, but he doesn't really do that. I mean, Scotty threw a better block on that short Gronk catch last week. So what? Scotty has been in so much football at this point for the Bucs, and he's changed so many games.
He's drunk on Brashad Perriman. He's drunk.
I'm just confused. I know Scotty's not an all-pro. I know that him leading the team and receiving at the midseason point last year, going into that Week 9 game against the Saints last year, that was a fluke because of injuries to a lot of different players. I understand that. I just still think that's a guy that's clearly talented, fits and works with Brady. You want to go vertical. You're picking Perriman to be that guy over Scotty, who's actually been doing it. And Perriman, I mean, the Jets don't want him. The Lions didn't want him. The Bears didn't want him. Those are 3 of the worst rosters in the league.
And listen, Tony, I get it. Miller is a one-trick pony. Can't do much else, but he does that pretty well. Now, granted, he didn't run the best route in Indianapolis, but it was like also his first game back since week 3, right?
And so he came back and drew like the game-changing DPI, right? Like,
exactly.
He's open. That's a touchdown if that guy doesn't grab him. Like,
and here's the thing. It's like there's a thing called recency bias, right? This might be a thing of like history bias because Brashad Perriman, he balled out at the end of 2019, as Tom Buckspan points out. And that might be on Bruce Arians' mind, but I mean, Scotty's done it more recently, John. I mean, the Green Bay game last year, right? I mean, that was 2020. What Perriman's done is 2019, and as you mentioned, he hadn't done much since in this league or even in Tampa.
It's just funny because the more opportunities Scotty's got, the better he's played. And when you gave him less opportunity, he still impacted and changed games for you twice in the playoffs. Obviously, 2 huge plays, Packers, Saints. And then you talk about the Vikings game too. That kind of was a huge play in terms of just turning around their season in general. So to me, it's like pretty obvious that is a guy that you want to have in that role to play a little bit more. Like, this is a guy that could change the game in one play, change the Colts game in one play. We've seen it so many times, change the Packers game in one play. That's just not Brashad Perriman has had a couple opportunities since he's been here, but moreover, Brashad Perriman is a huge career body of work in which that didn't happen outside of like 3 games where that was the case for him. So again, I'm not saying Scotty Miller is like amazing or going to go for 1,000 yards if he gets to play the wide receiver 3 role for a full season or anything like that. I'm just saying he's got a better chance at changing a game and making an impact play than Perriman, in my opinion. So I disagree with the decision. So
I totally agree with you. And the thing is when you look at Scotty Miller, he played 8 plays in Indianapolis, 4 on special teams and 4 on offense. He had the 37-yard DPI, as you mentioned. That was one of his 4 offensive plays. He recovered a key fumble in the Colts red zone as one of his 4 special teams plays. So when you can make 2 game-changing plays out of 8, that's a hell of a ratio, man. It really is.
Yeah. And I'll say this too, in defense of the Bucs, not in this situation, but in general, what they've done in kind of response to the AB thing since Gronk's come back has been encouraging. Last year, they really didn't play Gronk in the slot a ton, and they really didn't play him out wide a ton. That wasn't something that they did with him. And I was just checking out his numbers, looking at his alignments today, just from making notes during the game yesterday. And I was right, like that. Even though he's not play, he missed obviously a bunch of games with that injury. You know, he's going to still eclipse numbers last year out wide and in the slot at his current rate by a lot. He's going to have a lot more reps out wide and in the slot this season than he had all of last season, despite playing. How many games did he miss? 6. Despite playing like those 6 less games, I believe. I think he was out for. Is that right?
This year, I think
week 3, 4, or 4, 5, 6, 7. Yeah, maybe it's 5 games. Anyway, whatever he was out, he's still going to eclipse those reps. So they are taking him and they're kind of saying, we're going to use you almost as like a wide receiver 3 type of role more. We're going to move you around. We're going to be more versatile with you. Bruce Arians really has not had a tight end that he's done that with. You know, he mentions Heath Miller whenever people bring up.
He was mostly in line.
Yeah, but exactly. Heath Miller was a lot in line. He did not have the athleticism of a Gronkowski or the ball skills down the field vertically as a vertical threat like the Gronkowski does. So Bruce is kind of in Leftwich too are kind of figuring out how to use Gronk to the best of his ability. And that's one of the reasons I don't think last year they necessarily always did it. You know, they had some of the other guys that were working AB in. There was lots of things. You were trying to figure out the backfield. I think there was lots of things that whole group was going through. And this was kind of a late step in that. And I think you're seeing Gronkowski's production elevate because they're realizing this guy's still playing at an elite level. And I actually wrote this at the end. I'm going to toot my own horn here just because I don't think people realize.
Do it, John.
Like, I mean, it was kind of like ridiculous last year how little people realized that Gronkowski, they were like, well, he's not as fast as he used to be, but I'm like, no, I mean, like he might look weird when he runs, but he's always looked weird when he runs.
Yeah.
That's never mattered. Like when do you see Gronkowski down the field where he's like, can't get away from somebody? He's always gets that separation late. Like it doesn't, it can be physically, it can be a burst at the end. It can just be his reach, but he creates the separation in his way. It doesn't have to be aesthetically pleasing when you already put together a Hall of Fame career. And I think now the Bucs see that. And
he's not like Travis Kelce, but he's not like Jason Witten. He's in between those guys where he's going to get a step on you. And the fact that he's 6'5" with those long arms, that's all he needs. Right. One step means he's open. Right. Kelce might get 2 steps, right? Just because he's smaller, faster, he's slowing down a little bit. He's no spring chicken, but you know what I'm saying? Right. Witten just didn't have any wheels. He just knew how to box you out and how to find the soft spots and zones. So I think Gronk's kind of in between Witten and Kelce. Yeah. But again, with those long arms, the big mitts, and enough speed to get 1 step, that's all he needs. And you saw that on the fade route. I mean, that was a decision that Brady knew where he was going with that. Speaking of AB and Gronk and kind of being this third wide receiver, let me ask you this, John, because this is something brought up in our post-game Pewter podcast. If AB gets cut, right, there's a chance he could be signed off the street by a contender. How much of that do you think could be a factor in the Bucs not wanting to see him in Los Angeles, Green Bay, right? Is that a factor?
Well, he's not going to get cut. The biggest factor, Right. I mean, we've obviously written about it because Bruce has left it on the table, and that's so we're just being responsible journalists by saying, hey, Aaron just said he's not made a decision. We're not going to put words in his mouth, but here we are on the podcast giving our opinion. Right. He's not going to get cut. And that might be part of it. The big part of it is that they want to win the Super Bowl and he helps them. Yeah. And so, he's not going to get cut. Will he get re-signed in the offseason? I'm not sure. We'll see. The only way he gets cut, actually, I'll add this disclaimer, is if he does something dumb during these next couple weeks, which I wouldn't rule out with AB. So let's just leave it on the table for now. As long as nothing changes, I don't think he's going to get cut. I wonder how the team will approach him, even if they were like wanting to levy more discipline or whatever. I don't think it would be they would cut him. They would just keep him. I mean, he's not costing them anything. They would just keep him and not play him, or keep him and fine him, or bench him. I don't know what they would do. Put him on injured reserve, whatever they want to do. But that would be more likely to me than them just cutting him loose, unless he does something else. So John, that's part of it. If you had some money and you wanted to put down a bet that AB is not going to get cut, I would do it at my bookie. I don't know about you. Yeah, but that's what I would do. Yeah, listen, cryptocurrency. You win a lot of money there. I've had a great run. These last 2 weeks have been very good, and I'm rooting for the Patriots tonight. Money line, baby. So this could be a big day to cap off a big weekend here. Cryptocurrency is the future. Don't get left in the past. Bet with MyBookie, and you can get in on the game now. To get you kickstarted with crypto, use the promo code Pewter to double your first crypto deposit at MyBookie. So that's the thing. You can use the promo code Pewter to double your first deposit with cash or with crypto. The best part is MyBookie accepts well-known cryptocurrencies like Bitcoin, Litecoin, and Ethereum, so you can bet and withdraw with crypto. The NFL playoffs are around the corner. This week, the Buffalo Bills and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers will face off in a potential Super Bowl preview. Both teams sit one away from earning the top spot in their respective conference. So the stakes in this game are pretty high. Bet the Bucs money line. Don't miss out. Double your first deposit up to $1,000 with cash or crypto using promo code Pewter. Head over to MyBookie today. Place your bets and watch the sparks fly too with UFC Fight 269. Bet anything, anytime, anywhere with MyBookie. Yeah, it's great stuff. And getting back to that conversation a little bit that we were talking about with Gronkowski, my kind of final point to this is I don't know that you can look at Gronkowski and you can look across the league and you can see better tight ends outside of Kelce, Kittle, and Waller. Those three guys are super talented. I know Waller's situation this year has been kind of all over the place, but those three guys, obviously, and Kittle too. I mean, Kittle's hurt and his quarterback play is not what Gronk's is, but those three guys, okay, if you want to put them there, okay, but I mean, like, you're not taking any of these young bucks over Gronk. Like, you're just not. I mean, maybe
Right.
long term, obviously, but not you need a game. Like, you're not taking him. Like, he's still that good. He led the league last year in vertical targets and vertical catches. That means 20 plus air yard catches and targets. So people can't run. Well, he's running and getting open and getting targets and getting catches better than anybody else in the league at the tight end position down the field. So you tell me what he can't do. I don't see a player that's dropped off. I just don't. So he's never been fast. It's never mattered. It doesn't matter for some guys. We've seen wide receivers where it doesn't matter. Sherman's a corner where it hasn't mattered. That's even more rare. But for tight ends, yeah, you can thrive. I mean, look at him. He just totally dominated, like physically overpowered Eric Harris yesterday in coverage on that fade route touchdown. That hasn't gone away. He still is technically sound and is physical and as big and strong as he's ever been. The ball skills are still there. I just hope he keeps playing because he's incredible to watch play the position because of how many different things he can do and the effort that he puts in to the game. And then I always thought it was kind of like overdone when he played in New England, right? The whole like, oh, Gronk's so funny thing. And maybe it was when he was younger and he was just, it was him partying every week. It's just kind of like, all right, this gets old. But being able to interview him and like talk to him now it's just like amazing how genuinely like unassuming and humble he is. Like it's just incredible. So I just think he's great for the locker room.
Yep. The crazy thing is right now, if you were to take his average, he's got 33 catches for 436 yards, and he's missed 5 games. But if you were to take his current production, divide that by the number of games played, which is 7 right now, and if you were to project that over a 17-game season, a hypothetical, right? You're looking at a Rob Gronkowski that has 1,482 yards and 15 touchdowns this season. So, like, that's how dominant he is, John.
And we're not taking numbers off one game either. Like, this was, 5-6 games now?
He's got 6 touchdowns in 7 games he's played in. So, it's like
a legitimate shot at double-digit touchdowns. Despite
there's no doubt about it.
Like,
a
good portion of the season. It's
right.
Yeah, you are not talking about a normal tight end here. And I think the fact that Arians has kind of looked at last year and kind of what I was saying was at the end of last year, I went back, looked at the tape. I was like, Gronk had a 1,000-yard season, honestly. I talked about this a lot on the show. And for anybody who's new, maybe it'll be your first time hearing it. But every single dude on the Bucs from Tyler Johnson, who obviously in his first year, to Mike Evans, Chris Godwin, Scotty Miller, Antonio Brown, everybody on the roster for the Bucs had their best catch percentage of their careers playing with Tom Brady last year. In other words, the most efficient years of their career in terms of converting targets into catches. Everybody on the team. It was incredible. That's just the efficiency and the accuracy of Brady, especially compared to what they probably had before. But that was a number that just stood out to me. Gronkowski had his worst catch percentage of his career. He's the only dude on the team. You'd expect Brady to have this great chemistry. And they were the ones that couldn't link up half the season. And some of it was Brady. He missed Gronk for a lot of big plays last year.
The Denver touchdown, right? Week 3, that would have been his first one. Yeah.
There was one against the Panthers. There's a big play on the first drive of the game against the Vikings last year. I could go over and over the games and have all the plays noted and clipped. And I put them in an article actually and showed people like, this is how many times Gronk was wide open down the field. And they just missed him because those two were off while everybody else Brady was fine with. Meanwhile, people were talking about, does Brady like Mike Evans? Is he going to throw?
Right.
And the whole time it was just him and Gronk that couldn't get on the same page. And this year obviously couldn't be further from the truth, but it's fun to
great observation.
Staff figure it out. Yeah, it's been cool.
So, John, we're going to get to Bucs Bills preview on Wednesday, but we would be remiss if we didn't point out that the Bills are playing tonight against the Patriots, right? The Bucs have already played the Patriots. That was a very close game in the rain. Brady's return to Foxborough, a 19-17 win, closer than people expected. Mac Jones was not the Mac Jones that he's turned into now. Even Matt Judon wasn't the Matt Judon that like he's been playing right now. Those two guys are keying the offense and defense for the Patriots. The Pats are on a roll right now. This is a big game for Buffalo tonight for sure, says Deuce Flex Machina. I would agree with that. Let's talk just briefly about this. The question I want to ask you is twofold. Number one, is it better for the Buccaneers if the Bills win tonight or lose tonight? They're already going to be on a short week, right? And listen, I know that this really doesn't matter to players because really what happens outside of injuries in tonight's game does not have a whole lot of bearing. On this game, their momentum is real, so there could be some of that. But at the same time, momentum can work both ways, right? You can feel like overinflated, like you just beat the Patriots almost to the point where there's a bit of a relief and you kind of take your foot off the gas because Monday's game against your division rival is actually bigger than this game against an NFC team in Tampa. Or if you lose, now you're kind of under the gun, not just in the division, but in the playoff race. It turns this game, just for the sake of a victory, into more of a must-win game for the Bills. So that's the first part of the question. Is there more pressure on the Bills tonight to come into Tampa with a win? Is it devastating if they lose? The second part of it is, would this Buccaneer team right now beat the Patriots right now in Foxborough?
Yeah, first part of the question, I think I don't know that it matters for the Bucs whether the Bills win or lose in this game, but I will say, and I know nothing to quantify this, but I wonder if like there's some level of desperation that kicks in for the Bills if they lose this game. I mean, they have really kind of screwed around a little bit. They got crushed by the Colts. They lost to the Jaguars on the road. Obviously, the Titans were playing well at that point in time, but losing to the Steelers in week 1 at home should never have happened to the Bills. They just could not get anything going in that game. So, yeah, I think this is a Bills team that is just kind of underwhelmed. I mean, they should not be 7-4 right now. People were kind of like, oh, the Bucs should be better than 9-3. Well, the Bills, they got to feeling even worse because they went through 3 teams that they should beat. I mean, there's 3 teams in there. I'm not sure if they'll make the play. Now, the Colts will probably make the playoffs, but I'm not sure. I know Jacksonville won't. I'm not sure about the Steelers, and they've lost to those teams. And even the Titans, they're more talented than all 4 of the teams that they've lost to. I don't think there's a question there. Now they don't have Trey White, who is one of maybe their best defensive player, probably their best defensive player. And so that makes a big difference for them. Now they have 2 great safeties, but they have basically a completely unproven secondary. I mean, Levi Wallace has been okay for them. Teron Johnson has been a good nickel for them. There's some limitations there, though. It'll be a fun matchup with Ian Godwin for sure. I just think in general, Buffalo needs to start getting things going, and they've got the Patriots, the Bucs, the Panthers, which should be a win, and the Patriots over the next 4 weeks. So we're going to learn a lot about them, but they've already got 4 losses. I mean, they're going to probably lose the division if they lose tonight, and especially in the next game. I would agree. There's not a lot of margin for error for them. So that desperation, if they were to lose on Monday night and get this fall to 7-5, would be at an all-time high. And they would be, it's that kind of that loss where the Chiefs, they went to 3-4, right? They've not lost since. They've not even played that much better. There's still questions, but the desperation caused them to go to the board and change things. And other teams have not been as prepared for the things that they've changed because of that. So there's that concern if they were to reach that mode. So yeah, I want the Bills to win tonight, I think. In terms of the Patriots, I still have questions. Tonight will go a long way toward answering those questions. If you watch the Patriots against the Titans, and I had I don't know if I would call it pleasure of watching that game. Mac Jones was brutally bad. I mean, and they won that game convincingly. So nobody probably looked at it and his numbers were fine, I think, at the end of the game. But the Titans dropped multiple interceptions. There were multiple missed wide open receivers. And the Titans had at least 1 pick 6, just clear sailing, and they dropped it. So I just want to see, because the defense is playing unbelievable right now for the Patriots. I have no question about that. There's no defense, I believe, in the NFL right now that's playing better than New England's defense. Right. But they've beaten, the Chargers, who was a good win, but I still don't know what the Chargers are week to week. They've beaten the Jets, the Panthers, the Browns have been terrible, the Falcons, and they've done it with great defense, no question. They've given lots of opportunities to their offense. They've tons of takeaways. I just still have questions with the rookie quarterback, not whether he's going to be good long-term, whether he's going to be able to win a Super Bowl this year. So I'd still take the Bucs if they played the Patriots today, but it would be fun. I mean, the Bucs played way better than the point margin would suggest in week 4. And so I think that should be included in any analysis of the way these 2 teams match up, because they should have won by a lot more, and they only didn't because they shot themselves in the foot a lot. So
I think the interesting thing about this is the Bills can't run the ball and they can't stop the run. And whenever you come in really one-dimensional, especially on both sides of the ball, you're playing right into Bill Belichick's hands, because the first thing Bill Belichick says is, I want to take away what you do best, right? And I want to exploit what you don't do well. And when you make it easy for him, when he turns the film on and it's pretty apparent, when he looks at the stats and it's pretty lopsided, in one direction, that that makes his job and the coaching staff for the Patriots job a lot easier. And so it will be interesting to see if the Bills can maybe break some tendencies tonight and actually establish a little bit more of a running game. That's been a real struggle. And if they can also stop the run, because I would suspect that the Patriots are really going to try to test that after seeing the way that Jonathan Taylor ran over them 3 weeks ago. They're going to be, in for a challenge there. The other thing too, John, is when it comes to this Bills game, to me, I remember the Bucs Seahawks game in 2016. The Bucs weren't that good in 2016. The Seahawks came to town. This was Russell Wilson. This is Richard Sherman, right? This is a really good Seahawks team that came here. The Seahawks were favored. It was a big game that actually either sold out or got super close to a sellout. Like 1,000 seats, were undersold. This is kind of back in the Legion of Boom. And the Buccaneers pulled the upset. I think they won 14-5 in that game. Evans had 2 first-quarter touchdowns on Richard Sherman, and Ray J was absolutely rocking. It was an amazing electric environment, really similar to what we saw opening day against the Cowboys. It was that type of atmosphere for a regular season game. I think that this Bills-Bucs game is going to have that really big game feel to it. That the Bucs really haven't had a whole bunch of. Let's say what you want. I mean, they've had some great wins this year, right? They have blowout wins against the Bears, blowout win against the Dolphins at home, but those games didn't have the juice that this one's going to have because of their opponent.
Yeah, for sure. Buffalo's going to be as tough a team as they'll play. I mean, the Rams were tough in week 3. They came out of the gate harder than I thought they would, and then they've gotten actually worse since then.
I know.
But, they got off the side a little bit against Jacksonville, but it's Jacksonville, so we'll see. But I'm just curious what Buffalo's made of, man. Like, they lose a guy. You lose a guy like Trey White. You've gone through a lot. You've just been all over the place as a team, game to game. You did not expect that from Buffalo. Even when they've not been that good, they've been kind of consistently who they are since McDermott got there. And over the last couple of years, they've just you expect a level of play to them you haven't gotten every single week. So I'm just curious, can they get it together over these last month or so of the season? I think that's just a huge question for the AFC, and it's a huge question for this upcoming game too. What kind of team is Tampa Bay going to face? Because like it or not, Tampa Bay's been fine, and nobody's really, there's so few great teams this year that it's hard to call anybody really super battle tested that has a great record right now. Everybody's kind of won some, lost some against other good teams, but it's going to be important for the Bucs playing against a quality opponent again, and then they're going to finish the season against 4 teams with losing records that probably aren't going to the playoffs. I think this is a good measuring stick game coming off 3 straight wins. You're going back to home. This should be a game where you're focused, you're ready to go, you're comfortable. It has kind of they're without their best corner in the Bills. Their safeties are tremendous. But there's winnable matchups here. You mentioned they've struggled a little bit against the run, and their numbers have been better than last year, I think. But can you run against them a little bit? And then defensively, obviously they're going to be a huge challenge. I mean, Josh Allen containing him and getting him down in the pocket. How many sacks this team's missed. So I'm excited to talk about it on Wednesday, because I think it's going to be a matchup with lots of layers to it. But I'm really excited to watch Monday night's game too, because I think we'll learn
no doubt about it. So we have a question here. Do you think that Raymond James will hand out the battle flags for our playoff game next month? You're going all the way back to 2002 when the Bucs had a playoff game against the 49ers. The Jeff Garcia, Steve Mariucci 49ers that came in. I think they lost 31-3. Terrell Owens was on that team. The Bucs just blew them out at home. That was really one of the games where the John Gruden offense finally kind of came to life. And we're waiting all season because the defense was so dominant all year for this offense to come to life. Brad Johnson had missed some time with a back injury, broke a vertebrae in his back. Rob Johnson had to come in and win the defense won the games, but he served as the quarterback for a couple of weeks. And all of a sudden Ray J was rocking. They had these battle flags. I still have one of mine around here somewhere. I got to find it, but it was an amazing spectacle. And I think they did that in 2005, maybe 2007 for their whole playoff game. So I would suspect that the Bucs might do that again. Makes for a great, atmosphere when that happens. But 31-6. Yeah, 31. And it was 31 in single digits.
Hey, listen, if you want to hear more about music, sports, and culture live and get in depth with these things, Spotify Green Room is the place to go. You can download it on the App Store or get it on Google Play. You can jump in these rooms. You can take the mic. You can give your opinion on any of these topics. If you want to do it about the Bucs, make sure you're following Pewter Report on there. Get the notifications when we go live. But Spotify Green Room, man, lots of great content on there. Great place to voice your opinion and hear the opinions of others and get involved in some great discussions as well. So make sure you check out that on the App Store or get it on Google Play. All right, Scott. So we're looking ahead now. Obviously, this week, Tuesday, we're not going to have a show. Obviously, tomorrow, but we are working on some special content to give you on YouTube. So everybody, make sure if you're not, make sure you're subscribed. Make sure you hit the thumbs up and the like button on this show to help us out. That boosts our YouTube SEO and does a really nice job for us. You guys have been instrumental in getting that subscriber count to be growing quickly, so we appreciate that. Yeah. But there's also going to be X's and O's content coming this week. Paul's texting me about an idea he has that we're working on, so hopefully we'll be able to get something up tomorrow and later in the week for y'all as well. Keep growing out the YouTube content and keep expanding what we're doing for sure. So if you like that kind of content, make sure you're subscribed. Make sure help us out with promotion, help us out spreading the word, help us out hitting the like button on these videos. That stuff all matters. The super chats, all of it helps us out a ton and allows us to put more money and time into developing and building out what we do on YouTube, which I think is some of the content y'all enjoy the most. So we definitely appreciate that. But Wednesday we'll be back. Scott and I will have the preview show for Buccaneers, Bills, and we'll have the Bills numbers and recent performance to evaluate as well on that show, talking about what they did against New England and how that matters for the Bucs game too. So we'll have all that coming up on Wednesday's show, and then Thursday we'll be back as well with another show, 4 p.m. Eastern. So we're excited about those shows. It should be a great time. Terrence, appreciate you loving the All-22 stuff. We've loved doing it for sure. So we'll be back on those shows, and you'll see us up here on YouTube with some of that All-22 stuff this week as well. So until then, thanks so much, everybody, for listening to another edition of the Pewter Report podcast. Out.